I now call to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, July 24th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Alahouzes?
Here.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Here.
Commissioner Sieber,
Here.
Commissioner Kikta?
Here.
And I see Commissioner Carr.
Thank you. Tonight's invocation will be given by Reverend Dave Parkinson. If you please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening seeking your guidance and your direction as we once again consider the items before us necessary for the ongoing betterment of our city. We once again ask that you would give us strong hearts and clear minds, that we might make decisions that are in the best interest of this community. Thank you for everyone present here this evening, Father. We would pray for those in our community, though, who are less fortunate than we. Especially, we ask that you would care for our most vulnerable citizens, our children. And now we would thank you for those that protect us, our police officers and firefighters, our medical personnel, those first responders who give daily of themselves for each one of us who call Tarpon Springs our home. We also pray for each member of this commission seated before us here tonight and ask that you would give them wisdom, understanding, and guidance throughout the evening. All these things we pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our commission meeting. Thank you for being here tonight. We are now going to the public comments of the items that will not be discussed this evening. If you have any comments, please come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you'll be given 4 minutes.
Good evening, Board and Commissioners, City Manager, Chief, and our esteemed Esquire Jay Deneau, and Michelle, our always competent clerk. As you see, a number of people here, so I'm not going to take time going into what they're going to speak about and show you, but what I'm going to speak out about is relevant to what they're going to talk about. First, I would like to thank the mayor for coming last week to the Green Dolphin and hearing some concerns. But what I'm going to speak about is not a Green Dolphin issue. It's a Tarpon Springs issue. And that is the elephant in the room now, that's Wawa. As I said then, and I told the people there, you're free to use our phrase, find another site, and move it out to 19 where it belongs. Don't have the staff going through all this rigmarole and stuff that is going to end up getting shot down and we have spoiled relations. You need to step up and tell them they need to be where they need to be. A couple of basic points. I spoke to you a while back about the consequences of an oil spill during Epiphany. And before we were known as the Epiphany City, we were known as the Venice of the South because we're all connected by water. There's crabbers out there. Right now you can still see crab traps. A few months ago, the manatees were there. Now the site they're looking at is smaller than their specifications. It's 1.76 acres and 0.98 of it is wetlands, which drains into the back of canals that drain into the back to Whitcomb Bayou that eventually spreads through the rest. Now I'm going to paint another scenario that hasn't been mentioned or brought up, but we all remember Hurricane Irma and what was happening then. They were wanting people to get out of town. People were filling up with gas and taking off and leaving gas stations empty. Storm comes, we get the rains, we get the floods. Just last week, I was driving by the bayou at Spring Bayou. It was 1:30 and the water was already over the embankment by the monuments, the veterans monuments, middle of the day. Now, if any of y'all have dug and planted palms or anything in your yard, if you know you go down about 4 or 5 feet, you're going to hit water somewhere. Now, just imagine we're in the midst of a hurricane warning. The gas tanks have been emptied, and then we get a couple of days of torrential rains. And then what happens? Buoyancy. You can't stop water and buoyancy. Boop, boop, boop. Those 64,000 gallon tanks popping up because they're empty. Another thing, they're required to build up to 11 feet. And they've said it's not feasible to do this project. But what they want to do is get around and flood-proof the building. Well, all that does is protect their product. It doesn't do anything protecting the waterways. And when you see the designs, if you go down there and look at it, the weir they designed is a narrow weir behind the back that eventually floods out. And that's not even including the runoff from cars that have pulled up with their radiator broke and the fluid flows out, oil pans leaking. That's not the right place for it, and I'm speaking just environmentally. Other people will talk to you about traffic and historic and economic and all those things as it comes up, but environmentally, it's the wrong place. And I don't mind having a Wawa, but they don't belong there, out on 19. And if you tell them we're working on completing that road, that they will have access from people in Tarpon to that station on the corner of Mango and 19. There's a couple of strip centers there that are more than half vacant. And if you go to that corner, there's like a parking lot behind it full of vans. So there's plenty of room that they could purchase it just like Walmart bought the Kmart. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I hear none. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the proclamation, the Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. The City of Tarpon Springs, Florida proclamation. Whereas, on July 26, 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, to ensure the civil rights of people with disabilities. And whereas, the ADA has expanded opportunities for Americans with disabilities by reducing barriers and changing the perceptions of and increasing full participation in the community life. And whereas throughout the year and on the anniversary, July 26, of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the City of Tarpon Springs celebrates and recognizes the progress that has been made to reaffirm the principles of equality. And now, therefore, I, Chris Salahuzos, by virtue of the authority vesting in me, as the mayor of the City of Tarpon Springs, do hereby observe July 26, 2018 as the Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. And this proclamation will be mailed. Are there any commission comments on this item? Here none. Are there any public comments on this item? Thank you. Yeah, and now we're going to the item number 2. It's a presentation for sustainability. Dory Larson.
Good evening, everybody. Lower that a little, maybe. Okay. My name is Dory Larson. I live at 1846 Lexington Place in Tarpon Springs. And to start, I wanted to first thank each one of you for your leadership. You each agreed to talk with me one-on-one about my concerns regarding sustainability. And I believe that you are all committed to making decisions that will continue to protect our beautiful city. And I'm thankful to Commissioner Banther for putting this agenda item on for tonight and allowing us to continue this conversation as a public forum. So thank you. So we're here tonight to discuss sustainability and addressing the peril of flood. This is a quick roadmap of where the presentation is going tonight, so I'll just get right to it. The first issue is that I want to identify the problem. The issue is that Tarpon Springs is facing increasing stresses and shocks directly related to sea level rise. And Tarpon Springs does not have a coordinated sustainability plan or goals to address these increasing risks. We have individual projects that we're working on, but I don't feel that the risks that we're looking at can be successfully contained within that lens. This map is based on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration high sea level rise projections, and it's found in the report Recommended Projection of Sea Level Rise in the Tampa Bay Region. And I think that the takeaway from this chart and this map is that we understand that sea level rise is coming, but our actions now can determine whether we're looking at a 1 foot sea level rise or a 7 foot sea level rise in the future. There was an economic analysis done by the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council entitled The Cost of Doing Nothing. And if we are seeing a 2.95 foot sea level rise, that would translate to almost $22 billion with a B in losses in the Tampa Bay region and over 17,000 lost jobs. So as the title implies, there's a tremendous cost of doing nothing. This is a picture of the sponge docks, and I think that the image speaks for itself. This is a map also created by the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council depicting what a 2.95 foot of sea level rise would mean for our town. So you can see most of the river and the property surrounding it would be inundated. So next I want to talk about some terms, make sure that we all are talking the same language. So the term resiliency, as you can see, it's defined as the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, and businesses and systems within a city to survive, adapt, and grow, no matter what kind of chronic stresses and acute shocks they experience. And sustainability, on the other hand, means living in a way that limits negative impacts on our environment and resource base while enhancing our quality of life and economic growth. So we know that there are risks in life. Good business owners know that you need to reduce risk in order to be successful. Resiliency looks at reducing and containing those risks, but sustainability is reducing those risks over the long term to preserve viability well into the future. So great business owners know how to do this, and it's really the same concept with the city. So to help try to connect the dots, what we're talking about sustainability because the city can help take measures that can reduce our risks, and that will save money that we can then use to fund and address adaptation efforts that we might need to take in the future. So the solution that we are bringing, the proposal that we're bringing to the city is fourfold. So the first is we're asking that the commission establish formal sustainability goals. So that's step one. The second aspect of our proposal is we're asking that the city hire a sustainability coordinator to enact an integrated sustainability action plan. And our city is lagging. Oldsmar, Dunedin, Largo, St. Petersburg all currently have either a sustainability coordinator or a sustainability director position. And this little city of Treasure Island is actually in the process of hiring one as well. So the salary range we're looking at is like the low 40s, and I included that in the backup for you this evening, and a job description of St. Petersburg director. The sustainability coordinator usually reports to the city manager or the public works director, and it should work across all departments. So the whole idea is that it's an integrated, coordinated effort. And I feel that if it's left to a contractor, that it would not have the desired effect for the city. And in full disclosure, I don't have anyone in mind for the position. We support the idea of creating the position and think that the city would definitely benefit from it. The third part of our proposal is that we're asking the city to adopt an integrated sustainability action plan. So the city of Largo and the city of St. Petersburg have an integrated action plan that I've provided for you. I'm I also want to show in the next slide some specific action indicators. These are specific measurable actions that the city could take. So the first one, I'm not going to read all of them for lack of time, but the first one is reducing building energy usage. So we can sign a contract with an energy services company that would lock the savings into a contract. And I'm going to give a specific example of what Pinellas County Schools has done in the next slide. But also another key component would be to map out where our vulnerable assets are in regard to sea level rise and have a plan for how to address those. So here are some other specific measurable indicators. So these are some examples of real world solutions that are in our local community. So the YMCA in St. Petersburg is planning to replace all of their fluorescent lighting with LED. It's an estimated $15,000 to $18,000 per year cost savings, and it would take 3 to 4 months to pay back the cost of purchasing the light bulb. So it very quickly would start to save the city some money. Pinellas County School District signed a contract with Synergistics, which is an energy company that, like I referenced before, you would sign a contract and they would look for ways to reduce energy usage within the city. And the way that it works with the school district is they basically split the savings. So there's no capital investment to the city, and we would basically get half of the savings that they recover. Another example is Clearwater Residential Solar. So this is based on permit data. They've had 128 installations in 2017, which is an estimated 1,000 kilowatts of energy, saving residents almost $200,000 and preventing 2.5 million pounds of carbon dioxide annually from going into the atmosphere. And I want to credit Brian Beckman from the Ready for 100 campaign with the Sierra Club for providing those specific examples. So the fourth part of our proposal is we would like to see the city adopt a citizen advisory board that would build capacity for the sustainability coordinator and also to increase communication with the community at large. Some key considerations that I wanted to point out is that number one, the city's already doing some really great things, so I would like to acknowledge our city manager for taking some steps already and putting those in place. I appreciate that. And Paul Smith, who's working on getting solar on the RO plant, and we have a water management where we're monitoring water quality in Spring Bayou. So those are great things that we're already doing. So the idea is, I just want to make sure that we're clear that our proposal is just wanting to do it in a more coordinated way, so that, you know, we already have these efforts in action, but if we do it in a more coordinated way, it would do several things. It would leverage the city's image, looking forward and looking to the future for both our citizens and also for our business owners, that, you know, they feel confident the city at least has a plan to be addressing sea level rise that we're facing. It also creates a greater sense of community through increased communication and education, both internally among staff and externally to citizens. So when I spoke with the coordinator from Largo, she stressed that the collaboration that it's creating in their workforce, and that it breaks down silos within their departments and creates a more cross-departmental work. And I also want to stress that this would be a net financial gain for the city. So the idea is, with the energy savings that we're creating and ways to save money, looking at other of the proposals that we've shown and examples that we've shown, we would take that money and then be able to have a pot of money to invest in future capital outlays like pumping stations or raising road levels or whatever it is that we need to do to be more resilient that we currently just don't have the funds for. So that's the whole idea, is that even if you don't believe that we can impact sea level rise with these efforts, we can all agree on saving taxpayers' money. And I also wanted to point out that there are grants, there's federal, state, and private public funding available for these efforts. And basically, we'd like to urge you to take action soon. So I know you guys have a budget meeting tomorrow. If there is action taken soon, then we could start allocating for a position to be funded for next year's budget. Every season that we wait, every year that we wait, the water levels are rising and the risk, both environmentally and financially, is increasing. In terms of, we're losing power source. Is there a plug somewhere? There's nothing, is it plugging? I'm just going to keep going, but the next person's going to have to. Okay. So I've offered some resources, and I would also be happy to continue coming back to city commission meetings to and bring experts that can help educate us. Like, that was weird.
Yeah, Trill, what do you think?
Okay. Help bring scientists, other experts, leaders from other cities, or policy experts if they could help to continue the conversation. But the bottom line is that even if we don't adopt all four of these, if we adopt something, we've got to start somewhere. So we really urge you to take some action. We need a commitment to start doing something. We have a historic preservation board within our city. I think it's important that we also have a future preservation board. And with that, and whatever the sky has fallen, I will leave it at that. So thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the informative presentation. Mr. Licouris, do you want to comment on that?
Well, I'll make it short. Like I said, we've got a long meeting. This is a subject that takes a long time to discuss. I appreciate all your efforts and what you're doing, but I don't think we're so far behind as it seems the presentations bring forward. We've already done the energy thing. The energy thing's already done and been going many years. Right now, as those of you who look or watch television tomorrow night, budgetary-wise, I hope all of you who want things of sustainability are going to vote against the additional homestead exemption, because if that goes through, the city of Tarpon itself is going to lose $500,000 out of their budget. And doing these things of sustainability now costs money, and that loss from our budget, which will come if that vote comes, are there. I really think first of all, the position, as you'll see tomorrow night, there's other positions we're holding off with because we can't commit the positions with that $500,000 that we're facing in November if that votes go through. So, and besides that, I think it might be premature. We have got a group of department heads that's been working on sustainability for several years. And one of the catalysts from it is one of our boards we have here now, the Budget Advisory Board. They had a member, especially who just left us, but a member who in every division and stuff talked about all levels of sustainability and all departments be working on it. So the team led by Paul Smith, Bob Robertson, who's the project person. We've got the police involved in green initiatives. We have got the energy thing we've done, I don't know how many years ago, but the energy thing's already in place with everything you talked about there. You probably should have had us up there because we've done that already. This year coming up is the year that we plan to be working on the plan. It was all set to work in the plan. We've got a new building director in the audience. I bet he is going to be joining our sustainability team. Maybe a year, 2 years at that time, maybe that's viable and stuff, but I'm never so sure having one person do something is always good. They told me that in community policing back when that got started, and everybody was getting one person to handle community policing. My way was different, and I thought we had to do complete departmentally community policing and not an individual in that work. Maybe that's the case here, because I think I've got a team of people in all different areas of sustainability that'll be able to do that job now. Now, after we get the plan done, after we know where we're going, we may need some additional person, but I'm real confident in the efforts we've done and doing before that that's coming. So the good news is the plan's all its way. It's going to be working on it within the next year. You'll be seeing us as we work on the thing. We've already been in contact with the St. Pete's, Dunedin's. We're looking at all sorts of things, but that, and I can tell you right now, it's a nice concept and idea for citizens to me, but staff-wise, city clerk-wise will both tell you we're pretty well tapped out. And a group together, and I always equate it, we talked about it, marine commerce, like the Friends of the Ankle. That group together who coordinate and come, not connected with the city, that's fine. But right now, we're maxed out on the ability to staff and do the boards. Now, that may come later after we do the plan and stuff, but we will be working and coming back to you. The plan's on the way. We're far more ahead, and we'll get you that information in the coming times, where we're going, what our plans are as we study these things. But we're well on the way to sustainability, to working over a plan on the next year, and then that would be the time to look at these other options.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Dory, I want to thank you for the informative presentation. And I'd like to provide the audience with some information that will be very useful. Again, I want to thank you for emphasizing the sea level rise. As you know, that I'm serving on Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. As a matter of fact, I think if I remember correctly, you were in the audience one of those meetings that we were talking about the subject. One of the main issues that we're working with over there is the rising sea levels for counties Healdsburg, Manatee, Pasco, Citrus, Hernando, and of course the Pinellas County. This phenomenon is real as far as I'm concerned, and we are very concerned here in Tarpon Springs. On March 7, 2018, we passed an ordinance for the comprehensive plan to update the coastal element to include the sea level rise. And the city should continue to monitor and address issues relating to the sea level rise. The policy 3.1.5 indicates strategies for sea level rise. One of the strategies is to improve the stormwater management and drainage. On March 15, we had a workshop, and I placed this item on the agenda to discuss strategies to improve the stormwater management and drainage. Again, this phenomenon is very real as far as I'm concerned, and we are very, very concerned here in Tarpon Springs because the flood elevation in Tarpon Springs in some places is very low, some places down to 4 feet. So we have to take it serious, and we must invest on infrastructure for the future of the city. But we already have started doing things to improve the stormwater issues. And with the leadership of Mr. Licouris and the staff, we purchased 3 properties to build more retention ponds. One is located on North Avenue, the other one is on Cross Avenue, and the third is on Gulf Boulevard. Also, for the Decanis Boulevard stormwater issue, for the picture that you had on the screen, we're waiting for engineering design to be completed. It's actually 2 projects for the same location. One project is to install check valves to prevent high tide street flooding and to increase the pipe size to that goes into the street, and also to build a stormwater vault and a pumping station, and place the pumping station on the Decanis Boulevard, which is going to be very challenging and, of course, very expensive, but it has to be done. All these responsibilities, of course, is under the supervision of Mr. Licouris and his staff. And as far as creating the position that you're asking, I think it needs more discussion for the future, but I want to thank you again for bringing that up because seawater level rising is very important and it's very real. Thank you. Is it commission comments? Vice Mayor Pence.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dory, for taking the time to meet with each of us and then for presenting tonight, and also doing it in a very quick fashion. I know it's hard to get through all the information so quick, and I appreciate that. So we do have a late night. I think you planted a seed, as I've told you, and as the mayor and city manager have discussed, we have started a lot of these initiatives. It wasn't quite mentioned, but this building we're in now, with the windows that we put in, things of that nature too, was a big help. I remember it used to get very hot in here. My first two or 3 years in office, and with the windows in now, I think the HVAC system doesn't have to run as much. So we are taking steps forward as that. I think the first step for us would be to really create the sustainability plan that you outlined. We have it happening right now, kind of in individual departments and in Mark's office per se. But I think that would be the first step before we go for hiring a director or a advisory board, was to get our plan in place and then go from there. Tarpon's not always the first of things, as we all know, but I think if you look at many examples, when we do it right, and many cities then look to us for leadership in that area. So I think with kind of firming up our sustainability plan that's in place in different pieces, I think moving forward in the future, I think we'll be able to possibly accomplish some of these goals that you mentioned, because it is true that water levels are rising. I'm not considering myself an environmentalist, but living here my whole life, I drive the streets and it floods more and more each year. So I think it's something that we have to keep in mind and prepare for our future, and consider it in our infrastructure plan, like you mentioned. Even if we can't stop the water from rising, we can do things to save taxpayer money by mitigating things to help our infrastructure protect it, and to make sure that whenever we do things, build things, or fix things, we do it in an environmentally sensitive way. Because we have more coastline in Tarpon Springs than any other city in Pinellas County or Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken, and we have to preserve that, because tourism is vital for us in protecting that. So thank you again, and again, I think you planted a good seed, and I think you'll see some of these things come to fruition in the future. And I thank our city manager for at least over the past my 5 years, I think, making a lot of advancements in solar and energy efficiency. When I know, just when I was on the budget advisory 6 years ago, it was still kind of cost prohibitive, and now we're doing that in different places, and I think you'll see that grow. So thank you again tonight, and I look forward to your continued involvement. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you. Commissioner Kichter?
Thank you. Thank you, Dory, for bringing this forward tonight. Thank you for meeting with me and discussing. This is an issue here in all over, but especially in Tarpon Springs. Most of our town, a lot of our town is either at sea level or below sea level. So, when it rains, those sponge stocks are underwater. I notice more and more that the bayou is flooding a lot more frequently. The water is coming over that seawall. So yes, we need to address the issue. Unfortunately, like the city manager has stated, we're waiting to see what happens with the vote in November with the extra tax exemption law. So we could lose $500,000 in our budget. So hopefully it doesn't pass, because I would like to see us look at hiring somebody full-time to start working on these projects. Right now we have Paul Smith and Mr. Robertson, who are they're excellent at doing their job and working on some of these projects already that we've put into place. And like you've pointed out, we're starting to put the solar on the RO plant. We started doing LED lighting within town, correct? And but I think the cemetery, is Paul still here? Oh, there he is. Doesn't it, just correct me if I'm wrong, the cemetery, I know it had come forward with the sprinkler system, and isn't that something new that, so it's like if it rains, it knows it's rain, so it doesn't turn on, so it's energy efficient that way. So, we're moving in the right direction. There are a few things I would like to see personally, like charge stations at some of our city lots for the electric cars, that I think we need to start looking into.
We already have, and we're looking at getting a grant from Duke. We've
Right.
already been working on that, and
And I
our
have
first ones are coming.
okay, and talk about Duke, and I have some contacts there. I'm talking to them about some plans. I'll talk to you about that, Paul. And I noticed we have carpooling. We do some carpooling here now. There's some spots for people that are carpooling. I see a carpool spot. So hopefully that our employees are utilizing that. I would like to possibly see some solar on our ball fields, because I think the ball fields are being charged, if I'm not mistaken, the ball teams for part of the lighting. If we could go solar with that at some point, I think that would be a great savings for everybody. So again, we're moving in the right direction, but yes, there is some more things that need to be done. So there was something I read in the backup here about scorecard for each city building. one of the cities is doing. I think maybe that's something that we could look at in all our city buildings. I think we've done something similar to that in the past. So, and that could be a start. But again, I think once the November election passes, and if we have the opportunity to hire somebody after that, I think that's a move in the right direction for us. But again, Dory, thank you for this. This is and bringing such a great crowd here, and everybody cares about our community. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Sieber.
Thank you. Thanks, Dory. I know this took a lot of work, and you met with each one of us, and there's a lot of research, and I appreciate everything you've done to bring this forward. We're lucky to have some staff, Paul Smith and Bob Robertson, who are forward-thinking and have started some of these plans, sustainability plans, and I know we have a lot more to do. So I'm not going to repeat everything my colleagues said, but it looks like we need to wait until we see what's going to happen with this vote, because if we lose $500,000, there's going to be an impact. I might suggest, rather than an advisory board, a community board, like a committee that gets together and discusses these options and what we need to do, and maybe work with us. There's a county stakeholder advisory board for local mitigation, and I think I mentioned it to you and several other residents in town, but they look at the impact on sea level rise, hurricanes, other catastrophic, and also how these disasters impact our county. So far, there's one person that's on that board from the city, so I would recommend any of you that may want to be on this board that looks at the impact and the mitigation to talk to Heather and find out how you can get on that board, because I think that's a really good way to start. So thank you again, and appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, Mayor. Dory, thanks for presenting tonight and your hard work that goes behind all of this. During our workshop that we had, that the mayor mentioned earlier tonight, one of the discussions was that we do need to make a deliberate effort every budget season to focus on a project and looking at how we can address the rising tides and how we can address sustainability moving forward in the future. Small steps every year make a big difference. It's not going to be one giant leap that we're going to make as a city, but it's going to be little steps at a time that really does make a difference across our bayou areas, sponge dock areas, and so on. And the mayor also brought up, too, I thought it was fitting tonight that they are, later on in the agenda, we do have an item that is going to be up for approval to purchase backflow valves to prevent the flooding waters coming into the roads for the sponge docks and I believe off of Bayshore as well. So I thought that was fitting tonight, that the presentation fit in line with that as well. I'm happy to discuss further some of these items that were brought up tonight amongst the commissioners and the city manager as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Lord, thank you very much. We are now going to the item number 3, which is a cemetery concept plan. Mr. Smith?
Public comments.
Oh, excuse me. I need to go to public comments. I forgot. Huh?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what I'm going to do, go to public comment. Any public comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor, are you asking for public comments about Dory's presentation or about what's coming up?
Well, actually, when item that we're not going to vote with, public comments are not required, but we'd like to ask and get everybody's opinion and input.
About the presentation on sustainability? Yeah, what I heard in Dory's presentation, by the way, I'm Dr. Robinson, my wife and I live at 948 Bayshore. What I heard, and I think many of you repeated this, is what I heard in her presentation was complementary to what the city is doing and plans to do. I've looked at the sustainability plans for Largo, St. Pete, and also Sarasota. And I think if we were to compare those, we would see a difference in the way sustainability is defined among those different cities. If you look at Largo, they are talking about alternative vehicles. They are talking about alternative forms of lighting. They are talking about electric vehicles, et cetera. If you look at Sarasota's plan, they're looking 40 years down the road. They're looking at anticipated sea level rise, and they're looking at 6 different areas of assets that the city either owns or manages. That might be an interesting way to start looking toward what she's proposing. Other than that one addition, I agree with everything she said. And I also compliment the city, the mayor, and the city manager on what you've done already, but there is a great deal more to be done, and I think what she's saying is complimentary. And as she said, there's grant money available for some of it. I'm sure everyone in the room, everybody here, wants Tarpon Springs not only to be the best historic small town in the USA, but also to be the one best prepared to face the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jack Spurk, 2008 Golfview Drive. I'm here to lend support to the citizens and Dory. Jack Spurk, 2008 Golfview Drive. I'm here to lend support to the Citizens for Sustainability. I walk my little dog 3 to 4 times a week in Craig Park, and it's very alarming when you see how the water is overlapping the pavement, the walkway there more and more every day. Other than that, 10 years ago when I lived in Miami, it was my introduction to a first thing called King Tide, which I had never heard of before. And along with myself and many other people lost our cars in a parking lot on South Beach. 10 years now, you can still see the effects of that. They've been working on rising sea level, and it's still a big problem. I agree with your support. Commissioner Banther said at least we can start taking steps. I would suggest at least we start to begin. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Murphy. I'm at 1706 Palomino Drive, Tarpon Springs, and I'm a leader in one of the local churches. I want to emphasize that since biblical times, religious groups of all kinds have come together, different kinds of religious groups, but we do come together to help the needy during disasters and in the aftermath. That's part of what we're called upon to do, to look out for the very young, the very old, people who live alone, low-income people who are sometimes pushed aside. We've often responded to floods, famines, other disasters, and this is what we're called upon to do once again, to step forward as people of faith, Greek Orthodox, Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, people of all faiths, to help our neighbors during a very difficult time, and that's what is happening, folks. The sea level continues to rise, every summer hotter than the previous summer, the spread of tropical diseases in some cases. This is a very difficult situation, and it will not be solved in just one town or just one state. But all of us are called to work together. I'm very impressed by tonight's presentation by Dory, and I'm also very grateful for what this town has already accomplished, and not just in civil engineering, although that's extremely important. I'm also very much concerned about social services and how we reach out to our elders and to others and to provide the support that they need. Now, I can't speak for every religious community, although my colleague Pastor Smith is with me and there are some others in the room. But I think I can say that religious communities want to be helpful to the town and to citizens groups. Let us know how we can be useful and realize that much of our attention, well, it's like the story of the Good Samaritan. It's just going to focus on helping our neighbors. That's what we do. And let us know how we can be useful. Thank you.
Reverend, thank you for all the help that you're providing for the City Information Center, too.
Hello, my name is Susan Glickman. I'm the Florida Director of the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. I've been working on energy and climate-related issues for the last 18 years. So I just wanted to mention, and the mayor is fully aware because he's always in attendance at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and he mentioned it, but the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's sort of key initiative this year is a Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. Pinellas County has already endorsed the Memorandum of Understanding, as has Citrus County, so it's an opportunity across the region, the counties that you mentioned, and including Sarasota, actually, because Manatee and Sarasota are doing a lot of work together to get out in front of this problem. As Dory mentioned, the Tampa Bay Science Advisory Group says we are in for 3 feet, almost 3 feet of sea level rise by mid-century. And so part of it is adapting to the climate impacts that are already in the pipeline, which you guys are contending with. And the mayor, you've brought that issue forward a number of times in the Regional Planning Council meetings. And then we want to reduce our emissions and lower our footprint and become more efficient so that 3 feet, it's one thing to contend with 3 feet. It's quite another thing to contend with 6 feet. So we have the technologies. The city of Orlando is paying for half of the cost of a new police station from the savings that they've gotten from doing energy efficiency in 120 buildings. And I can tell you the technologies have improved. So if you did something 2 years ago, you may want to start again because the LEDs are improved, and it's kind of a constant thing we can do. So we have this incredible challenge, and I do appreciate bringing in sort of our faith perspective, into the gravity of the conversation. But the good news is we have the solutions. We can electrify our vehicles, we can make our homes and our buildings more efficient, and there's a lot of resources for that. So I know that, imagine the mayor will be bringing up the idea of signing on that Tarpon Springs comes together with this region in the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. South Florida did a compact 10 years ago, and one of the reasons they did was to bring back dollars to the region from things like the U.S. Department of Transportation. So if everybody bands together, there's a better opportunity to meet these really problems that are going to be difficult, but we can get out in front of it. And I live in Bel Air Beach, so I'm a neighbor, but I'm a Tampa native. I've lived here my whole life, so I look forward to working with all you all to get out in front of these problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Any other public comments on this item? Here none. Thank you. Lord, thank you very much. Mr. Smith, you want to give us the presentation on the cemetery concept?
Thank you, Mayor. Paul Smith, Public Services Director, and we're pleased to present to you tonight a concept plan for an expansion of the Cycadia Cemetery. With me here tonight as a co-presenter is the design project manager, Tom Burke from Cardinal Engineering. I'm just going to ask him to stand up and show himself to you first, and he'll come up and speak in just a minute on the details of the design. We're really happy to have the opportunity to talk to you tonight and get some of your thoughts as we're moving forward. Of course, there's still time to make changes to this, but we do think we've got a good proposal for you here. Let's see if this will, okay, it's working, great. So as an overview, just a little bit of background on what got us to this point and the need for the expansion. Talk about the site that we acquired, the work we've completed to date. We've done a lot of work out there getting ready to present this to you. Talk about the site plan itself and some renderings, particularly of the mausoleum that we're proposing in Phase 2, and then finish up with our schedule that we're proposing moving forward. By way of background, our goal is to maintain a variety of memorials and services for us into the future. That's going to do a few things for us. First of all, our Perpetual Care Fund, which is a fund dedicated to the cemetery's care, is funded from either the sale of the plots or the services that we provide. So it's very important to keep that going and keep this an active part of our community so we can better take care of the cemetery in the future. And the other good reason is we want to have a place here at our home for people to be remembered and have different types of ways to do that into the future. About 15 years ago, the cemetery sold its last new in-ground plot within a large area. We're covering that now with lawn crypts, which are pre-set concrete vaults, but they have limitations, including no above-ground type memorials. And with some segments of our population, that's not as popular. We want to be able to bring some more options back again. The other thing we note is that our mausoleum is also a popular choice. So any type of expansion, we recommend that it include both in-ground burials and mausoleum spaces, and that's what we're presenting to you tonight. So the site, we'd like to acknowledge Mr. Haftel because he really did a great thing for the city by making this property available to us. It's located just to the east of the existing cemetery. It's shown up there in the blue box. It's just right across the street. It's 2.55 acres, but what's a good thing is there's a city right-of-way and city property around it, vacant city property, so that really makes it more like 3.6 acres. It's also just below the sports complex, so it opens up some opportunities for us. If we have a very large funeral, there may be a way to do some traffic diversion through the sports complex and even possibly do some very temporary parking there if we need to. So the work completed to date, we've looked carefully at the site to make sure we're observing the wetland line and not doing anything to disturb those wetlands. There is a swampy area located to the northwest of the site. We've done geotechnical investigations where you look at the soils underneath the site to make sure they're suitable for the project. We've completed the survey, which includes locating all of the trees on the site. One important thing we thought is to do some site visits before we started the design, speaking with the experts, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Then there was an arborist evaluation with the goal of saving as many of the trees, the viable trees on site that we can. We also met with funeral service professionals to get their ideas on what might be useful out there for our community. And finally, we started working on that design with the site plan and the renderings. So those site visits, as I mentioned, they were completed in February 2018, and the purpose was to start our design team out with a very good idea of what the community needs are, what the history is, and types of layout that we might be looking at here. And in that group included Tom Burke, who I just introduced to you a minute ago, also his associate Jeremy Price, the architect who worked on the mausoleum rendering, which you'll see in a moment. And also, I thought this was important. Roberts Vault is, they're our contractor. They specialize in the burial services, and they do these services all around the state. So they see all sorts of cemeteries. They know what works well, and they know what doesn't work so well. So we really thought it was important to talk to them. For example, how far away from an existing tree can you count on being able to put a burial space? You know, if you read the books, they'll tell you go out to the very edge of the drip line. Well, that's 30 feet. You're giving up a lot of ground there to... So in other words, we got some very definite what works, what doesn't type, very valuable information from this. And also in those visits, we visited Cycadia Cemetery, so the design engineer understood our existing layout. We want to match that as much as possible. And then also another example in the area, Curlew Hills. I'd like to acknowledge Keenan Knopke from Curlew Hills. He was very patient with us and took us around. They have quite a variety of things out there, so it's just a lot of good ideas on what we could do. And then Mr. Craig Roberts of Roberts Vault took his time to come down and personally visit with us and give us his ideas. The tree evaluation, we brought in a professional arborist and looked at the site. We put a number value on each of the trees, 0 to 5, 5 being best. And essentially, trees that are rated 3 and above can be preserved, with the lower number 3 requiring more preservation than the higher numbers. And those findings, what we found is a lot of small diameter oak trees on the site. You know, when you look at it from a distance, you go, wow, it's a cornucopia of trees there. But when you look a little more closely, it's not so much. Those small diameter trees in themselves, we're going to save as many of those as we can. But by themselves, they're not these grand trees that we had in mind. There's also some of the larger trees have poor structure, and also you need to look at the ground around the trees. There's quite a slope on the site. We want to maintain some of that slope, but you can't fill in around a tree and expect it to survive. So we have to work with the grade, and that impacts what trees we can save. So the bottom line is we're looking at somewhere around 17 trees that were rated at a 3 and above that we're looking to save as part of this project that are viable. We looked at different plans with different types of trees being saved. The one with all the trees 3 and above is in the foreground there. We'll see a little more detail in a minute, but I think you'll see that it provides a nice variety across the site of cover and canopy and natural trees, understanding that there's a balance, because we got to remember this is a cemetery site, so every tree that you have is going to reduce the number of spaces that you can plan on in the future. The input from our professionals, our funeral service professionals, one of the big items they recommended we consider is a committal shelter. And I had not heard of this before, but they're present at VA cemeteries. And what they do is they provide a central location for the service instead of at the graveside. And what the benefit of this is it provides a covered area away from the weather. It also provides a nice space for the family to gather. What we're proposing is this would be an option. This would be something where we could still have the graveside funeral if that's desired, but this just provides another option for the families to have a committal shelter. This has been included into the site plan. It's been included as part of our proposal for phase 1. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Burke, and he'll go into some detail on our master plan.
All right, thank you, Paul. So as you can see, there's been a lot of hard work building up to this point. We've incorporated all that information that Paul briefly discussed into what we're calling our master site plan. And as shown here, we are sitting 804 in-ground plots. Our goal was around 750 minimum, so we've met that goal. We're happy with that. We're comfortable with that number. Also shown on the site plan, we're providing for 43 parking spaces. The committal shelter is also shown. It's the north rectangular structure just north of the mausoleum that Paul mentioned, which is going to be part of the phase 2 of the project. Still looking at the same site plan, just running down the bullets. Access to the property will be off of North Jasmine Avenue. Internal vehicular circulation will be in a clockwise rotation, so that you'll come into the site across the north property line, drop down into the parking field that we have in front of the mausoleum and the committal shelter, and then you can exit out through that south property line perimeter road back to the entrance. As Paul also mentioned, there's a sports complex to the north. We're going to provide a gated access for overflow parking. And another thing to mention is that that facility has a restroom there. Initially, we had a restroom plan for this site, but during the vetting process with the industry experts, the funeral directors, it was decided that we would be better served by the committal shelter. So restroom facility is located within that sports complex. Pedestrian circulation through the site will be accomplished through sidewalk along that main parking area. We'll provide access to the committal shelter. It will provide access to the mausoleum. It will also provide access through the lawn area and then eventually out to Jasmine Avenue. The existing wetland, we're going to maintain its form and function. We're providing for a 25-foot buffer setback. In between that buffer setback and the entrance road, we'll have a monument sign. Can still shift around that location. It's not set in stone at this point, but the monument sign located somewhere near the entrance. We're going to maintain as best we can the natural slope of the land. This property is it ranges from elevation 28 near Tarpon Avenue, slopes down to elevation 4 at the wetland. So quite a topographic relief across the site. We're going to hold that as best we can for a number of reasons, to limit the earthwork during construction and also to preserve the trees that we've worked so hard to show here on the plan. The property line along Tarpon Avenue and Jasmine will include a fence very similar to what we have in the cemetery next door. Let's talk a little bit about the Phase 2 mausoleum. We worked closely with our friends over at Fleshman Garcia to produce a mausoleum structure that I think works well for the site. As shown, we have 2 mausoleum buildings separated by a breezeway. All buildings and breezeways are undercover with an extended overhang to provide additional shading and shelter from the weather. The mausoleum also includes a drop-off area for pedestrians out front. You'll see the committal shelter located to the right of the mausoleum. We've included that in the rendering. We think it's an important piece to show. The site plan that I referred to has been incorporated into this rendering, so the parking lot is what we show on the site plan. That north access road where you see the red car coming in, that is conjunction with the site plan. The trees in the background are the preserved trees that we're aiming for. And then you also start to see that meandering sidewalk through the lawn area. So we're real happy and pleased with this rendering view, and it seems to work nice with the cemetery layout. A couple other renderings. The one to the left is a shot of the corridor in between the 2 mausoleum buildings. It's a straight shot through. There's no benches shown. It's in the view corridor is of the trees in the background, and you also start to see a little bit of that sidewalk back there going out into the ground plot area. And then the rendering to the right is the pedestrian drop-off area with its covered structure, and then you can start to see some of the building overhang proposed. Another interesting feature that the architect included were those sunshades, those horizontal boards going between the columns to provide additional shade on the structure itself, and we thought that was a great option that he pulled together for us. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Paul.
So wrapping up with our timeline here, we look to finish our 100% documents, getting ready to go to bid in September. We could also work on the specifications while we're doing the permitting in September, so everything would be ready to go out to bid beginning of next year. Hopefully we could do an award by March and start our construction the following month with the potential for the plots available for sale at the very beginning of 2020. So that's the plan at this point. We'd be happy to discuss it further with you or answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Smith, thank you for the presentation. I'd also like to thank you, and if you please, thank all the experts for working with you on this project. It's very important that we continue to offer the service, in-ground service. Also the mausoleum. The families will be allowed to place a cross or monument on the in the ground? Because
yes, that's the goal. We're going to still work through the policies. We're going to recommend to you and come back to you in a separate meeting. We've got some time to do that, but certainly that would be the goal. We just want to balance the care of the cemetery, ease of care with the needs of the community. So I think we can work something out.
Thank you. Yeah, we have no vacancies anymore, so we're looking forward to provide the service again. Any commission comments? Commissioner Kick?
Thank you. I just want to thank you for the update, Paul. You know, we were very fortunate to be able to purchase that property across the street. I think we were blessed, I have to say, because we ran out of room, and you know, we want to be able to service people in our community, continue to service them. So this seems to have worked out very well. It's real close to our other cemetery, and it looks like everything's moving forward as planned. So again, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome.
Vice Mayor Fenn.
Yes, thank you, Paul. I don't have any questions, but like Mr. Kika said, thank you for working on this. I think it's important, as I always say, a full service city. We have a place to lay our relatives, and none of us want to be shipped out of town if that's not our preference. I think it's very wise what we're doing by investing here in the future, and I love the things you've done with the mausoleum. That's beautiful, and the place for the services. I think that's much needed. So you have my full support, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No doubt we need this extra property with the last in-ground plot being sold 15 years ago. So I'm also very thankful that we were able to purchase this property. Thanks also for all the surveys and geotechnical investigation, arborist investigation or evaluation. And I think the committal shelters are a great idea. I know many military national cemeteries have them throughout their property. And it's a nice thing to have. So I appreciate that you all added that. And of course, preserving the trees and the wetlands is a given. So thank you. Yeah. And thank you, Dave, for all you do.
Commissioner Carr?
Thanks, Mayor. Paul, I've got a couple questions for you. I do support keeping as many trees as we can on the property. I think that's an important part of the character of the land and also the character of the cemetery. There's a lot of space, it looks like, in between the shelter and the mausoleum and the in-ground plots. Is there opportunities to put additional spaces? What's the thought behind that?
Tom, I'll take a shot at it. If I'm wrong, you speak up. As Tom mentioned earlier, there's a lot of grade change happening there, so they actually had to leave a buffer around that mausoleum to account for the difference in elevation. You can't have slopes that are too steep to be safe for walking. So I think they've maximized the amount of plots. In fact, if you saw the numbers, we were originally thinking 750, and they're able to make 806 and save all those trees. So I think they really did maximize it.
Sure. My next question is going to be about the actual shelter itself. So, say the in-ground plots are all filled and sold off, and it's been I guess you would call a mature cemetery. Is there a shelter need at that point still to have a shelter in a cemetery? And then at that point, would you look at removing the shelter and adding additional plots, or has any discussion come along that way?
That's a great suggestion. I'll tell you that our experience with the existing cemetery is a lot of times plots that are bought pre-need, which you need to provide that opportunity, don't get utilized for sometimes 20 years. So there will always be, and that's a good thing in a way for us because it keeps our cemetery active. So I think it would be, you'd have to wait pretty long into the timeline to feel good about taking that out. But that wouldn't be something that you could rule out further along, opening up that space for the future. Yeah.
And then two other, I'm not sure if this would make sense or not. Looking at the entrance of the cemetery, and then we've got an entrance of the sports complex. It's not ideal, obviously, to have an entrance of a sports complex and a cemetery in the same spot. But with the connecting of the parking lots, has that been discussed, or did you look at that for additional spaces at all for the cemetery?
Yes, and I also looked to the city manager's experience with this. We talked about it, and originally we were thinking the other way around, like the cemetery could provide more parking for games and things, but we really thought the opposite is probably the more likely beneficial scenario, where we'd have a manually locked gate that would separate the two, but during a big service that Dave occasionally accommodates on a weekend morning or a weekday morning, even better, that those specific cases we could make arrangements in advance so that maybe a row of that parking in the sports complex right next to the cemetery could be used, and that gate opened up just for those events.
Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. Oh, one other question. Do we have to provide public art as a city at this site, or do we consider the mausoleum like a public art piece?
I'll be consulting planning and zoning all through this project, so I don't know the answer to that right away.
Okay. Thank you for bringing this back before us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
Mike Kuskuda, 623 East Tarpon Avenue. I think, and I want to thank the city, this is long overdue. I've had this conversation with my wife and family where, we are going to be buried, because I would suspect that Cicadia even though there are people out there that want to rush the process along for me. But you know, there's, you know, we need to look forward to where we are going to be, you know, where our families are, you know, my father, my mother, all my cousins and stuff like that. One question I do have, when the thing is you're talking about making this customer friendly, I just didn't know when I looked at the names that were on there if any of our local funeral directors were included in the conversation, because I think their input would have been important as well. But I see it shaking yes, so that answers my question.
Paul can answer that question.
Well, I saw the head shaking yes, so I assumed that was. That's where that idea.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? Here now, thank you, Paul. If there's no objection from the board, I'd like to discuss item number 27 next. Everybody's okay with that? Okay, thank you. Item number 27 is the ordinance 2018-19, submitted referendum for the proposed extension of the amendment to the lease between the city and Tarpon Springs Hospital Foundation. This is the first reading, and the city attorney will read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2018-19, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, submitting to the electors of the City of Tarpon Springs a proposed extension of and amendments to the lease between the City of Tarpon Springs and the Tarpon Springs Hospital Foundation, and providing for an effective date hereof. First reading of ordinance 2018-19 by title only. Second reading to be held on August 7, 2018. Published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only on July 27, 2018.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone, all the representatives from the Florida Hospital. And I know Jason is going to give us a presentation, but Mr. Bruce Burkham is here with us today. Welcome back. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite the CEO and the president of Florida Hospital, Mr. Jason Dunkel, to give us a presentation to tell us the things that the improvements he's going to make to the hospital.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us tonight. And my name is Jason Dunkel. I'm CEO at Florida Hospital North Pinellas. And before I get started, I heard today in the news about a Greek tragedy over in Athens that's taking place with the wildfires. So really wanted to just remember any of our local residents that have family members in Greece. And so working with the mayor, we thought before this started tonight that we would put together some sort of care package between the hospital and the city. And he's got some nice connections in Greece, and so we will work on doing something on behalf of the hospital and the city.
Thank you.
Okay. I also would like to just recognize the commissioners and mayor and Mark as well. I know we've talked for a couple months, it's probably three or four now, about extending the lease and what that means to our community and hospital. So thank each one of you for your time to this important issue. Thank you. So I'm a new CEO at Florida Hospital North Pinellas. I've been there on the job for a little over a month now. However, I was Vice President of Business Development and Operations for the previous 3 years and have really grown fond of this community. I'm a native Floridian, born and raised in the Tampa area, so I have deep roots to this community. I also serve on the Lipa Radner board. And most important, I'm a husband and father of 4 girls. So I'm highly invested locally, and just wanted you to know that before I get going, because really that's what this is about. It's about being invested locally long term. So why are we here tonight? It's exactly that. It's about establishing a long-term partnership with the city of Tarpon Springs and the North Pinellas community. That's why we're here tonight. Let me be very clear on that point. So we are ready to invest $30 million in the hospital facility via renovation, exterior, So a new exterior and a new ER. And are requesting an extension of the current lease, which expires in 2040. So today, there are only 22 years remaining on the current lease. The extension we're requesting is for 30 years, beginning in 2040. And at that time, we will have two options. After 2070, so after that lease expires, we'll have two options, a 15 and a 10-year option to take it all the way to 2095. The hospital will pay a lump sum of $3 million to the city, payable 30 days from the signing of the proposed extension. And as I think each person here tonight knows, over the past 8 years, we have established at Florida Hospital North Pinellas a history of providing excellent health care in this community. And I think this can be seen. There are many accolades, which includes 9 consecutive semesters of A grades. That's the longest standing A-graded hospital in the whole Tampa Bay area. We are currently a 4-star CMS rated facility, which that is very, very difficult to achieve. So I'm very proud of that as well. And we've been granted Stroke Award by the American Heart Association many years in a row, among other superlatives and awards that I will not go into tonight. We've also increased the number of on-staff physicians from 160 in 2010 to nearly 400 in 2018. That speaks to me almost more than any other stat about how the physicians view our hospital. They're flocking here to work for Florida Hospital North Pinellas because of the quality, and we're proud of that. We brought new technology through our robotics program and cardiology mapping systems. We employ 800 people and contribute greatly to the overall economic impact of our local community. And our community benefit for 2018 year-to-date is at $13.2 million. Furthermore, over the past 8 years, our organization, Adventist Health System, has invested over $60 million into our hospital. And by 2019, that number will likely be over $90 million. So a substantial investment to date. So what I'd like to do now is just for the next few moments, show you what we're wanting to do. And I'll first show you the renovation, then I'll show you the ER, and then the exterior work. So this is an example of what our hospital will look like on the inside. Now this is visual representation or pictures from another facility, but we are using the same architect, and so they will be providing similar types of color palettes, flooring options, millwork options, and we'll try to make it as beautiful as possible, but obviously update the color scheme and the flooring to as many floors as we possibly can. So this is some pictures of what the renovations will look like. Let me go back and show you what perhaps the lobby area would look like. And then the second picture would be more on the nurses' station to the left here. The next picture is the ER expansion, and I really want to show you the position of the ER, just so it's very clear where the ER will be located. It will not be a renovation. This will be a new construction project outside of the current hospital. So right now, the hospital ER is on the second floor. This will be dropped to the first floor. So that hill that it currently resides on will be dug out, and the ER will be in the first floor, which is really the best solution for patients, because now they can drive on the first level and be dropped off, and it will be directly before the main entrance. So as I keep walking along here, I'll show you that. You do notice, too, the importance of doing these projects together is that since we're putting a new exterior on the the architects have come up with some really beautiful elements from a design standpoint. And one of those elements is that they've created this facade, this smaller facade, if you will, that will go from the current awning, or you know, there's an area where people can drive up underneath to the main entrance currently. It'll actually come out, and that will give us an area in the future to renovate as well. And it will turn into an atrium that connects the hospital to the ER. So basically that's what they're doing. From a design standpoint, they're connecting the ER and looking in the future and saying it needs to be cohesive. So that's what I'm pointing out here is what this ER will do for the long-term plans of the hospital. So the pink space there will be a future lobby and atrium type of area. Here is the most up-to-date floor plan. We have 21 examination rooms. That will allow us to see annual visits of around 37,000. Today we're seeing about 26,000. So I'm excited that this will allow for a lot of future growth. And then as I wrap this up, I wanted to show you just the current view of the hospital. And notice the angle that you're looking at the hospital from, and then compare it to this new view, which is at the identical angle. You can see the ERs on the second floor, but this is what we will look like when the project is completed. You can see the ER, the ambulance will have their own entrance, and it will go down to the first floor. There's a slight slope that'll take them down. And you see our patients will have two drop-off areas. They'll have one at the ER and one at the main entrance. And you can now see what I'm talking about with that facade that comes out that integrates the ER into the hospital. But this is what we're wanting to accomplish with the $30 million and through the extension of our lease. And here's a view from the other side. And so in summary, we're wanting to invest $30 million in the hospital building for renovations, for ER expansion, and exterior upgrades. $3 million will be paid upfront as a payment. The lease will be extended for 30 years, 2040 through 2070, with two options, one for 15 and one for 10. We're asking the City Council and residents of Tarpon Springs to support this critical endeavor tonight and on November 2nd in order to bring these improvements to the hospital and to our community. Our community deserves it, and we're eager to get started. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I am in support of the proposed lease agreement, and I believe these improvements will be good for the hospital, be good for the city, and good for the people of Tarpon Springs. On June 21st, we had a workshop. We discussed the proposed revised lease agreement. During the workshop, the public could not provide us with any input. So tonight, I'd like to ask our city attorney to explain to the people the revised lease, so everybody will know what the lease is all about.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Mr. Dunkel explained in large part the thrust of the lease amendments, primarily to do with the extension of the term into 2070 with the two extended terms, renewal periods for one for 15 years and the additional for 10 years. There are additional changes requested to the lease. We have been negotiating these between Mark and myself and the hospital team for the last several weeks. And having concluded those, the changes to the lease are minor in nature. Some of the terms are cleaned up. And when I say minor, I mean past the extension, which again is the thrust of the change. There has been a requested change to section 7 of the lease, which as presently constituted, and I don't want to misspeak, and I'm sure Mr. Dunkel or Ms. Teppert will correct me where I go wrong, but it functionally contains a self-contained financing clause where the hospital is not permitted to go outside this facility to obtain and leverage either debt or equity of their group. The amendments permit that. There is no additional financial exposure to the city. We worked with the language on that with between city and hospital, and we are both comfortable with language that both accomplishes the goals of the hospital and protects the taxpayers of the city of Tarpon Springs. Past that, there are some negotiations concerning the name, and there is one typographical error in the copy before you. But again, there was discussion at the workshop concerning the name, the present name and the future name of the hospital. It was discussed at the workshop that, we didn't want, Tampa Hospital at Tarpon Springs in the name, so there was some language in that vein in order to preserve its local flavor. And I also should mention that in the conceptual drawings attached to the amendment, Ms. Teppert and Mr. Dunkel have requested that the conceptual drawings presented to you tonight regarding the new ER and the facade of the building be substituted for the ones that I gave you. The ones that I gave you were the ones from the most recent amendment in 2015, as well as those documents provided to us at the commission workshop meeting. So with your consent, I will go ahead and make that change. And that is generally the thrust that is a fair summary of all of the changes. There was some discussion between the city manager and myself as to whether there were to be multiple referendum questions because the financial exposure of the city is not increased based on the language of the proposed amendment. My opinion is that is not necessary. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any commission questions, comments? Vice Mayor Beth.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank the hospital again. You're a vital part of our full service city, and I reiterate my comments that I made in our workshop. And I'm thankful that you want to invest here for the long term. I just want to clarify that the upfront rent is non-refundable, correct? That's true, yes?
That's correct.
That's correct. And I think that's a big, anyone that had some heartburn maybe, I don't know why they would, but perhaps some do, about this, the fact that it's non-refundable, I think is a huge safety net for Tarpon Springs. Because if the hospital were to leave, that's our money to keep, and you're essentially having a tenant doing tenant improvements to our city asset. So again, it's very vital that the hospital complete its ER expansion, which are on the path to doing, and that I think the facade improvements will make huge bounds as well in changing perceptions of the hospital. So I thank you for all the work you're doing and for willing to invest in our community for the long term. It was kind of funny, like I said, to talk about a lease that I won't be around for at the very end. So but it just shows you the investment that they want to make long term. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sieber.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I also appreciate that you took the time to meet with all of us and for the extra meeting that we had. I'm definitely in support of the extension of the lease from 2040 to 2070. This hospital is essential to our community. So, and you've spent millions improving it, and with staff and other improvements that you made. So, I appreciate how vested you are also in the community, because you showed that with all your support to our community. We need these additional renovations. They're necessary, and especially the new ER. I think I asked this at the last meeting, but when do you plan on starting your renovations, and how many phases are there?
Okay, so we have 3 projects. We have the renovation to start first, and that will be this fall.
Okay.
And then we have the ER, which will start in spring of 19, and the exterior probably likewise in the spring by the time we get to through schematic design, and we still have to go through some bidding with contractors as well.
I'm looking
So we're looking
forward
at
to it.
probably springtime for both of those.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Jason, thank you again for meeting with us past few times that you have, and it just shows that you're committed to the city, and this group is committed to the city, and you've proven to be a good neighbor. The money that you've put into the hospital, and you don't even own the property, it just shows there you're passionate about it. You're a good neighbor. You've created over 800 jobs in this community, and that's amazing, really amazing. It's A-rated for what, 8 years or so?
9.
9 years, okay. Well, I have to say, if the ER that you're planning to build is mirrored towards the one that's on 19, that is state of the art. I unfortunately have been there, but I ask any of you, if you haven't been to the ER on 19, go take a tour of it. It is state of the art, and that'd be very exciting to have in our community. We really need that. The only, can you explain to me what the 4-star CMS award is?
So it's based on quality, and there's a lot that goes into that from mortality standpoint, on preventable harm, and that's those sorts of metrics and measures. So there's a lot that goes into it, and
it's a good thing.
Yes, it's a very good thing.
The only other question I had, and I do support, I fully support what you're proposing here tonight. I did have a question, though. Of course, it comes up from time to time about keeping Helen Ellis somewhere in the name, and I know that we talked about maybe naming the emergency room at one point, maybe naming that a Helen Ellis emergency room, just something to keep in mind if, it kind of is important to the community. So, but other than that, again, thank you for being a good neighbor, and I look forward to all the improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation and your willingness to work with the city, and the desire to be a good asset and a great community leader in our small town, Tarpon Springs. This lease, I believe, protects the residents of Tarpon Springs and also allows the hospital to continue to invest in their property that they're currently in today. It's a great asset for jobs, and also it's going to be an improvement to the exterior for people that visit our town and see the building as well. A couple of things that I want to ask. Where's discussions that this is going to improve the hurricane impact, right? So correct. I think this past year we saw some closure, but can you give us a little details on that?
Yeah, so exactly, it will, from a wind mitigation standpoint, it will really help us, and it would be built to the current hurricane codes, in the state of Florida, which our new ER, we just went through that, and so it would be built to those same standards.
Thanks. Can you let me know, too, what happens with the ER during construction? Is there going to be like a satellite ER?
We'll have a separate entrance, so the ER will remain open throughout construction. And, the good news is it's new construction, it's outside, so we can maintain the ER inside, maintain the business there. We just have to reroute the patients likely through the physician parking area, and they would come in that back entrance. We'd have a triage set up there, and then we would take them down the hallway to the existing ER.
Great. Overall, I support this proposal. I think it's a good move for the city. I think it's a good move, obviously, for the hospital as well. I would like to ask the city attorney, there was discussion, like Commissioner Kikta brought up and raised, to looking at adding somewhere in the language signage to be kept on the building with Helen Ellis somewhere. I know there's probably some agreement of a handshake, but I'm looking further down the road, if it's 10 years, 15, 20, 50, I mean, we're talking about a lease that's going to about 2100. So most of us probably aren't going to be here, and the handshake is probably not going to be there either. So if we could add that somewhere in the agreement, although it's not the name of the hospital, but I think we've all come to a consensus that we would like to see that remain on the building somewhere.
Yeah, and as you and I discussed, Commissioner, that the legal requirement that Helen Ellis be appear in the hospital's name was excised in 2012, and certainly can be added back in. That'd be I don't know what the hospital's thought on that is.
So I'm working with Carol Martin, to maintain the name somewhere on the building, and so we will collaboratively have those discussions and work to keeping it somewhere on the building. So I told her I would get her the plans. We'd sit down together and look at a place on the building to keep the Helen Ellis legacy there. So.
Okay. So the name is obviously different than, like, it's not going to be the name of the hospital, and I'm not saying that we should add that to the name, back to the name of the hospital, but there would be some type of recognition somewhere on the hospital. I thank you for meeting with her, and I know the family's donated a lot to the foundation and has done a lot for our community, so it's an important aspect to keep it in the community. How can we potentially add it to where it's not necessarily the name of the hospital, but how can we add it in the agreement that it has some recognition somewhere on the outside of the hospital?
I might phrase it that particular way, just the way that you've mentioned, that the Helen Ellis name appear somewhere on the, I'm assuming you want it on the exterior of the hospital, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all tell me what you want as a group, and I will work with the hospital's team to get it accomplished, just bearing in mind that I will need to know before you leave here tonight what precisely it is you wish to accomplish that way.
I think that was the commitment they made the last time, was to keep the name somewhere visible. So I think that same line, it wasn't memorialized. I thought it was, but when we looked, it wasn't memorialized when we changed the last time. But a simple language, it'll be maintained somewhere on the building. That name will be recognized. I think that's an easy clause that can be added, and it'll suffice, the thoughts of what's going to be 10 years from now, that somewhere on the building, the name will be recognized, and the hospital, Ms. Martin, and them decide what that location is in the building, but that the name will be there somewhere recognized. I think a simple addition somewhere with a name that it be recognized somewhere in the building. I think that's pretty easy to add that clause on there to deal with the concerns of some of the board.
All right, I hate to be a pedantic lawyer, but that's what you pay me for. I mean, do you want it in, I can put it in 6-point font. You can never see it, but they will be in compliance with the provision. You know what I'm saying? So I want to make sure that this board is getting what it desires through this negotiation in terms of its prominence, particular location. I could stick it like this on the back of the building where it's never seen. You understand what I'm getting at. So I'm sure I can work with the hospital's team to come up with some language that will satisfy both parties, but I just want to make sure that I understand your direction in that regard.
Mm-hmm. What does do we know what the previous language says?
Yeah, I could pull it out. The previous language required that the hospital be named Helen Ellis, but why that it appear in the name of the hospital.
But how they have it now, how they have it on the hospital now, I mean, something equivalent to how they have it already from the last agreement on the hospital. You just have a name up there so something similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can look at, we have two options, at least based on those plans, and I'll work with Ms. Martin and figure it out. But I think that, to your point, you just want it somewhere on the building, and we will make sure we do that, so that it's prominent enough to see.
Yeah.
We're not going to shrink it to a 6.5 font, but.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
So thanks again for making the effort and wanting to make a significant investment in our community. I think it's a great asset to have here, and we really appreciate everything you're doing for our town.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation, and we're now going to the public comments.
Well, before we
you
go
want to say so?
No, just before we go to public comments, we did meet on the language today with the Budget Advisory Board.
Okay.
One of the provisions from the last Budget Advisory Board was already been put on 3. They were worried about there's a protection that the ER be built, and there was no language for the facade and everything, so it was a simple adding of the facade onto page 3. That again, that was already added. But today, from looking at the language, there are some recommendations, and Mr. Slew and Mr. Peters are here from the Budget Advisory Board, and like them to come forward and see their other recommendations from today on the language.
Mr. Salou?
Really, when you talk, one of them will be in relation to the first one will be in relation to something in this document. The other two are something for the commissioners that will not be related to this
Correct.
document in the language.
Correct. I'm Roger Salou, 967 Bayshore Drive. I'm chairman of the Budget Advisory Committee, and in full disclosure, I'm also on the board of the hospital. So I was sort of a dual personage in the discussions we had last week as well as the ones we had earlier today. We came forward with 3 recommendations. One of them was more of implementation, but was part of the undertaking, and it was, since this will be an added cost, first of all, the Budget Advisory Committee was certainly supportive of the agreement, and all of the commissioners have made their comments, as had we, and to the value and the community involvement with the hospital, et cetera. The first was, who pays for the extra cost of having this on the ballot? Had this not come forward, it would not have been a cost to the city. The recommendation from the Budget Advisory Committee was that the $6,000 to $8,000 best guess from our commissioner as to what this would cost would be borne by the hospital for having brought this forward. We didn't feel that was an unfair or significant expense. There were 2 other pieces that really dealt with what will the city do with the $3 million. Obviously, no concern with this board, but felt that the funds, as should be, with this should accompany a document that the funds would be put into a protected account, much like our city streets, and it would be done in the short term. And in the longer term, that there be a recommendation from the Board of Commissioners that at the next revision of the charter, which is coming up, I believe 18 months was the number figured or something like that, that the next charter review also include this to go on the charter, as do the city and streets clause as to finding concerns, and that it would be for the period from now until the period 2040, which is when that fund would then be used to pay the equivalent of the rent or lease that the hospital would have paid. So it was more of a concern that how do we make sure the money is there for its intended purpose? Marty, does that cover them? Okay. Thank you very much. We were certainly supportive of the undertaking and the position of the hospital. Thank you.
So I think, Irene, we have what we found out after the meeting. I went to Irene. Those numbers could be as low as the extra cost for the referendum, as low as $2,000. Did you say
The additional?
yes? The additional.
Right, we have to pay up front now. We've already paid, it's over 8,000, and whatever that additional is, depending on how long the ballot is for Pinellas County.
So we really won't know what that figure is. We really won't
After.
know what that figure is until the election people give us that figure.
Yeah.
So we can't give you a definitive figure until we hear from them.
I have a question.
Again,
Okay. No, go ahead.
I was just going to talk about in the other 2 items and stuff. The idea is obviously the $3 million in the plan. If it's kept and the interest kept, we end up with close to $6 million, which theoretically could pay us the $300,000 until the 2070 lease. So the idea is some mechanism in place. The recommendation is some mechanism in place that $3 million is assured to not be touched. Just like in the roads and streets, the $2 million isn't touched, and all we do with roads and streets we use the interest to do it, but the $2 million is not touched. That's not touched until 2040. As we talked about in 2040, who knows what the value of money is, what's the needs of the city. That commission then may want to take that $6 million and do something. Maybe they don't necessarily need the $300,000 for a lease payment. Maybe they want to do the $6 million and do it, but we should have it gather. These negotiations, again, I want to thank the hospital tremendously, because especially my warrior buddy Bruce Burgum, who why this was so easy is after our first round, and it was just because I was Bruce Burgum 2 representing the city. He was Bruce Burgum 1 representing the hospital. And we both passionately represented our causes. But he recognized the need. The need for us now, 2040, is to have that lease. We need that half mil of mill that the people don't have to pay. Obviously, with homestead exemption, everything going to hit us. We really need that now. Maybe in 2040, the need is to use that $6 million for some process. That the commission in 2040 could decide what you do. But until that time, to make sure that's built up, they were just looking at some kind of thing that $3 million would be left. The interest would build up to the $6 million, and then the commission would be free. Do we want to use that to pay $300 a year to 2070? Do we want to use the money? And that would be something, depending on the times, what money is worth would be in there. So that was the basis of, and again, that's not for this document, for this language and stuff, that's for a future time, but that's kind of to give a committal to the city. You're not going to take the $3 million due. It's going to really be invested in and decided on that time. That's something you do at a later time. You probably do it and send it to the charter people to if you want to put it on the charter, or again, talking with the city attorney how we do it. But again, that's something we deal with afterwards. The one about the extra election cost, that's something that if you decide to add that to there, then the city attorney can easily add it to this contract.
I have a question.
Okay.
I had sat in on one of the budget advisory meetings, and that it was a great point that was brought up, that we should restrict those funds at least to 2040, the $3 million. We could use the interest, like you said, but I didn't think that this was the time to bring it up. That's why I didn't bring it up. So if this passes, which I'm sure it will, is that the time to bring up the restricting the funds, or because that's not something that we should? I mean, it's in the minutes now that we know it's on record.
We deal with that and address that in the future.
Okay, because I wasn't sure that this was the point to deal with that, but
no,
I think
but they want to do it in the recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's a great recommendation. I think we should restrict the funds. We should not be spending that money.
And then again, that assures the public that you're going to do that for the vote. It
Right.
could be a help for the vote to ensure the public that's going to be preserved to build the $6 million to 2040. So I think it'll be a help for the referendum item too.
Yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. Thank you for that.
That's what was proposed, though, wasn't it, in the workshop? We
Yeah,
proposed that in the
we
workshop and
discussed that in
discussed
the
that.
We did.
Okay.
We'll discuss that.
Discussing that.
Okay. I'll try not to talk it to the light like I did last time. Okay,
I didn't think it was public comment.
Yes, it was. Was it? I thought you said public comment. That's why Roger was up. You did call public comment, did you not?
We will now.
Oh.
We will now.
Put everybody on the board.
I'm Michael Kuskudis, 623 East Tarpon Avenue. I serve on 2 boards at the hospital. I sit on the board the foundation. I'm also vice chairman of the board of directors, and the chairman of that board is Mr. Bruce Burgum. Many years ago, when Adventist Health Systems came into town, I had a meeting with Mike Schultz, who is actually Bruce's boss. And we went to lunch, and, it's not a secret that the hospital was struggling. We were a community hospital, standalone hospital that could not survive. We actually affiliated with University Community Health, which they also had a difficulty in moving forward as far as making the hospital what it needed to be. Then along came Adventist Health. And Mike Schultz told me, and I remember this to this day, he said, Mike, we will do what it takes to make this a successful hospital. We, as Adventist Health, this is what we do. We're good at this. And over the course of time, they have proven that they are good at this. A community is not a livable community unless it has access to good health care. And Mr. Banther, just to reiterate what Mr. Banther said. Okay, I see we got Mr. McConey in the audience. As a developer, he would tell you what houses or developments, one of the things that people look at for a successful community is access to health care, access to recreation, access to schools. Okay. That being said, the hospital has demonstrated over the years its commitment to this community. When we were discussing the prospect of moving forward with an extension of the lease, it told me 2 things. It told me that we were doing very well as a hospital for Florida Adventist Health Organization to want to stay here. It also showed me that they were willing to drop anchor, and that was important. Because I will tell you with certainty, that absent Florida Hospital, absent Adventist Health Systems coming into Tarpon Springs, your hospital building would have been empty. It could have been used for something else, but as I'm standing here, I assure you that's the direction that this hospital was going. There's you know, I'm not going to tell you the legal aspects or the components of hospital politics and why Baycare can't come in, et cetera. But at the end of the day, we were alone on an island. This hospital was alone on the island, and there wasn't enough money from University Community Health to plug the holes that were necessary to make this hospital viable. They came in and they did that. Not only have they improved the numbers, they improved the quality of care, which is probably the most important. Everybody knows I'm a very strong supporter of the hospital. I'm actually a stronger supporter of this community because I know that this community deserves and is entitled to access to great health care. And nothing can reiterate that more than their commitment to health care and their commitment to this community. And I want to thank you for actually this commission and Mayor for recognizing their benefits that they've added to this community and to the extension of this lease. I think it's paramount, and anybody who's listening or watching this at home, when it does come time for referendum, I strongly encourage you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuscudes. Mr. Burgum, do you want to say a few words?
So I said at the last workshop that we had, Mr. Mayor, I felt like I was coming home. But I just wanted to represent on behalf of Adventist Health System, Florida Hospital, our strong commitment to the community. And this certainly demonstrates that we believe the hospital has a very strong future. And we're excited about the changes coming. I'm excited about the leadership that we have at the hospital, and certainly the plans that we've got here. It's gonna look like a brand new hospital, certainly from the exterior, and the plans that we have for the interior will be certainly the citizens will be proud to go to this hospital. And I just want to commend the current leadership on the focus that they've had on quality, because after all, you know, quality is what's important in terms of hospital care. And so, guys, you have a gem here, and we want to partner with the city going forward here. So thank you for the opportunity to continue working with you, and thank you for your ongoing support. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on this item? Are there any other public comments on this item? I hear none. Are there any other commission comments or questions? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Can I ask for clarification?
Sure.
Do we need to clarify from the discussion that we had about the additional language in the agreement in the motion at all?
No.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner
Roll
Kikta?
call, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Siebert?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. Thank you. Well, tonight we have a long agenda, so we're going to take a 5 minutes break, and we'll be right back. Thank you. Yes, later. Yeah, yeah.
Air off. Don't you turn the air off.
Yeah.
Don't you turn the air.
That's going to be.
Is it colder over there?
Yeah.
I got a blanket in my Jeep. I'll bring it in.
I still got to figure out what happened with the ceiling.
All the grass don't fall through.
When Trill walked in,
The whole place,
or when
I
he's
know.
sitting down, or I looked up there.
Oh my God.
Your flag and look at my.
2018, the work session. B is March 20th, 2018, regular session. C is April 17, 2018, regular session. D is April 20th, 2018, regular session. 5 is satisfaction and release of liens. Number 6 is the attorney fees, Trasker Darnall, invoice 56,338. 7 is special events. A, Rotary Triathlon, September 8th, 2018. B is the Homecoming Parade, September 28th, 2018. 8 is to authorize execution of DEA Task Force Agreement. 9 is authorize execution of interlocal service agreement for traffic control signals with Pinellas County. Number 10 is the award file number 180142 RRS, revenue generated contract for dance classes. And number 11 is to increase file number 180043 NRS, single source purchase pumps and repair parts Myers. Number 12 is the award file, RFP number 180126 PCM, Building Development Services Supplemental. Number 13 is the award file number 180139 BCM, Resurface Public Works Yard. Number 14 is the award file number 180146 CCM, utilizing Sourcewell contract number 120716 NAF vehicles, cars, vans, US SUVs, and light trucks with related equipment, accessories, and services for purchasing 2 trucks. Number 15 is the award file number 180155 NCM, single source purchase of Checkmate backflow prevention check valves. Number 16 is the award file number 180131, single source purchase of process control monitoring system equipment. Number 17 is the award file number 180134 BRS, aluminum canopy and repairs. Number 18 is the electrical award file number 180156 CM, utilizing City of St. Petersburg, bin number 7669, service, maintenance, and repair. And number 19 is the award file number 180159 CRS, pipeline service for golf course through Pinellas County contract, which is 1670513 CPJJ. Are there any items that you like to pull? Are there any items that you like to pull? No?
I've got just some of the questions, not necessarily pull. I guess there's one, like the Rotary Triathlon, I'd like to pull and ask a question about, or just clarification.
Okay.
And then I have a question about the trucks also, number 14 as well.
13, okay.
And then I just have general comments that we can have after the vote, I think.
Okay. So we're going to pull special events, A, Rotary Triathlon, September 8th, 2018, and number 14. Are there any commission comments on those items? Except the 2 that we're pulling.
I've got a couple comments. Number 9, I visited the county's, I don't know what you would call it, the Traffic Control Center, and I would recommend all of my fellow commissioners and mayor to visit if you haven't visited. It's off Drew Street in US 19. It's a really neat, and it's really sophisticated, the amount of cameras that they have at all the different intersections, how they can help the emergency response teams respond to accidents, and how they notify individuals with either through social media or message boards or so on, and how they interact also with the MAPS programs. And there's a lot of Bluetooth technology that measures the speed of vehicles that go down the roads, and et cetera. So it's a really impressive system that they have set up there. Also want to commend the city manager and also our engineering team for putting number 15 on the agenda. It's the single source purchase for the Checkmate backflow prevention check valves, and we brought this up earlier. I did, even before I was on the commission, years before that, I would pester Mark and say, why do we have flooding roads? Is there a way to stop this? Isn't there a backflow preventer? And it's great to see this come to fruition overall. And thank you, Mayor, for your efforts and looking at solutions for the sponge docks and trying to address these areas. And then the other two I'll discuss after we have a vote.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item 4 through 19 with the exception of 7A and 14? I hear none. I need a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. 7, special events, A, Rotary Triathlon, September 8th.
Yeah.
Commissioner Carr.
I know this is, I think, consistently gotten rained out in years past. I didn't see a backup date in the backup in the event that does get rained out. Do we need to specify a backup date so we don't have to vote again, or did I miss that when I was reading the backup?
Mayor,
Sure, go ahead.
I was going to comment
I'm
too.
on the triathlon committee.
Okay.
Well, they don't take me off it, but I get the emails. But I'm in Rotary, so
Everybody wrote.
I tell them I set up one time and that's it each year. They can find somebody else. But no, I believe it's in October. It's only been rained out. I mean, I've been Rotary since 2010. I think twice max. So I mean, it happens. It's September in Florida, but usually the backup date is in October. Usually around the first or second week, if I recall.
Okay.
And I'm sure Celia Dubé has that date if we need to contact her and get that. But yeah, it should be the first or second week in October.
Good question.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, though, do we need to add it to the application so we don't have to vote on it again, or do we just address it if it does happen in another meeting?
Yeah, I can bring it to the meeting. I can get it to you, and I can bring it to.
Okay.
If it rained out, I can bring it to you.
Okay.
We've got meetings in between that because, like I say, there is a space between the dates. If it was the next day or something, if they were going to do a rain the next day, then I'd say, but we'll have at least one commission meeting before then to bring that change if we need to.
Fair enough.
It actually only got rained out last year for the first time in years that I can remember. So.
And
Thank you. We also have item 14 that you want to discuss.
yeah, I just wanted to talk about this, and Mr. Smith sent me some good information about this as well. But I want to talk about like the fleet as a whole for the city. We're asking for 2 additional trucks, and I drive a truck myself. I know there's an importance to having trucks in our fleet. But the question that I would have is, have we done an analysis to say why are we buying additional trucks? Do we not have enough trucks in our fleet today? I know we are adding additional staff to the water department and these departments. Is there an alternative vehicle that would get better gas mileage or something along those lines that we could look at? I know they don't really leave the city, but at the same time, there's a need, I understand, to go off-road to address pumps that are off-road and sandy areas and terrain. But overall, I just don't know enough about our fleet, and I'm not sure if that's been a discussion that we've had. I know sustainability was brought up earlier. I'm not sure if there's discussions for electric cars at some point for the local driving around town overall. So that's just an opportunity for me to bring this up and have a discussion about it.
I think, Paul, again, this type of truck, I think you need to come address what you addressed in the answer to them to the rest of the commission about the need, especially as we saw during the hurricane and at other times with the need for that type of vehicle, which I don't think there's a good alternative to right now in that field.
Yes, Paul Smith, Public Services Director. I can speak to the utilities and probably even extending into the public works areas. Most of the types of tasks that they're doing, be it carrying traffic control cones, hoses, generators, tools, those sorts of things just lend themselves to a pickup truck type vehicle. The access off-road is something that's important. But even just day-to-day going around on roads, going to job sites, I really think that is the utility-type truck that's needed for most of the staff doing those types of jobs. You know, whether it's something where someone is going around doing inspections, I can't speak to that, but maybe there's some application in some other area that there isn't a need to have that space in the back, often with dirty equipment and tools that just wouldn't be good to put inside a car.
Like I said, I understand the need for this situation to use the trucks to get off road because if we have a well site that's down that we need to address, I get that. But then when we're looking at our total fleet as a whole, I'm not sure if I've never been involved with any other discussions really about our fleet. So I think there's an opportunity potentially to look at improving it.
Well, again, that's something when we talk about sustainability, all the departments and stuff. Our fleet manager under Tom Function, who's going to be brought into when we're talking about doing the sustainable plan next year and stuff, that is a component to be brought into that. You know, where there could be alternative vehicles used, where they can't be used, where the technology is, where the price is. That's all sudden. And the fleet manager, we've got a very good fleet manager under Tom, probably the best we've had, and very knowledgeable, and he knows that that's coming in the future. So, so that is on our radar. Again, and it relates to the other item because it's part of the sustainability we have to look on moving to the future and the type of vehicles we need and where we can maybe replace them with the type of vehicles that, you know, they're talking about.
Got it. Do you need to do any lift kits on these trucks at all?
Whatever is specified in that thing. Actually, you say that, they do need to be a little bit higher, so I'm sure that's part of that specification to get through the water. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I want to add, I drive a Prius for my city work, so I'm putting a good part in this.
Any other comments, questions? No? Are there any public comments on this item? Item number 14 and 7A. Hear none, I need a motion.
Motion approved. Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going to the special consent agenda, item number 20. Authorize execution of GR 420, setting maximum millage rate for the fiscal year 2019. Mr. Licouris?
Yeah, I'll have Ron talk about the technical nature of it, but I'm very glad to send Commissioner Banther out. He was one way back who wanted to get to a balanced budget, and I'm glad, and not raise the millage rate, and I'm glad in his last year going out, yeah, but in your year going out, you'll go out with it. So, Ron, you want to go ahead and explain our process of not recommending any increase to the millage rate for this year?
Well, this is the start of the budget process, especially with the forms that go to the state. And tonight, we are authorizing the city manager to sign the forms that are called the DR 420 forms. They are the DR 420, the DR 420 TIF, the DR 420 MMP, which are required by the state as part of the millage setting process and need to be back to the state and county by August 3rd, 2018. Taking them individually, DR 420 sets the tentative proposed millage rate for the city at 5.42, which is still the current millage rate. Also sets the date for the first public hearing, which is set for Wednesday, September 5th, 2018. These are also used for the trim notices that the county will mail on August 20th, 2018 to the citizens. DR 420 TIF, the tax increment financing form, establishes the property value for the CRA. The DR 420 MMP, which is a maximum millage rate form, and sets the voting requirements. We don't have anything to worry about that at the 5.42, but what it is, if you have a millage rate up to 6.1628, would require a majority vote of 3 out of 5. 4 out of 5 votes would be required for a millage rate between 6.1629 to 6.7791, and you would need a unanimous vote, 5 out of 5, for a millage rate above 6.7791. But at 5.42, we're in the majority vote at the 3 out of 5 range there. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions. I just want to congratulate you, Mr. Licouris, the staff, the Budget Advisory Committee for having the third year in a row with a balanced budget without using any emergency funds, and keep the same millage at 5.42. Commissioner Carr.
I don't have any questions. I know I'm looking forward to having our workshop tomorrow night about the budget and further discussions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sieber, have a question?
No questions.
Well, I was gonna
Vice
say,
Mayor?
if we're on agreement tonight, can we just skip tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Hey, this is your last one. You got to enjoy it.
I'll show up.
Okay. Commissioner Kikta, comment?
I just want to say I'm happy that we're keeping the millage rate
Is
where
it?
it's been for quite a few years.
you.
It seemed to work well for us.
Yeah, thank you. The Budget Advisory Committee Chairman and Vice Chair, they're here. Do you want to share anything with that? Please. Thank you.
It's my Raj Salu, 967 Bayshore, and the Budget Advisory. We haven't had much time to talk about this and have not talked about it. Although it's our understanding that this does not preclude us from reducing the rate. This only sets the cap upon which the rate is based. The work we've done on the budget, and I should have done it earlier, and with Ron standing here, again, let us thank Ron and your staff, Mark, for a wonderful job in putting the budget together for us and preparing it. Each time it gets better and easier for us to have a chance to review and see what's going on. Seeing where the budget is today and the balance the budget has, it would appear to be silly to not approve a cap at where it is today. I don't see anything in the budget that would demand that we need more resources, and therefore the recommendation, I think, would be that, yeah, stay where it is. You may want to choose, for many reasons, to look at something different at a lower level, but certainly not a higher one.
Thanks. Mr. Pierce, do you want to? No? Okay. Do we have any public comments on this item? We hear none. We'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther? Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. We are now going to the item number 2021 is to authorize settlement of court enforcement lien at 832 Lincoln Avenue. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. You've received Tom Trask's memo dated July 11th, 2018. This concerns a property at 832 Lincoln. The amount of the lien is $28,855. We've negotiated a settlement at $12,000, and we are requesting your permission to settle at that amount in exchange for release of the lien.
Thank you. Are there any commission comments?
Yes.
Recommendation? Yes.
Okay, this has been a subject that the realtor, Mr. Howard, who was associated with this property, has reached out to me for months now. Obviously, his client, Mr. Sarukas, was aware of the lien and knew that it needed to be paid, and I think he paid a portion of it. But he spent over $20,000 cleaning up this property. I guess the former owner really did not care. He was behind on his taxes for the last 3 years. This property is listed as commercial, and it's only a 40 by 40 lot, so it's not large enough to put much on it. Mr. Sarukas purchased this property because he owns the acre lot next to it and would able to use both lots to put something on that property. Like I said, he was aware of the lien. He felt that what he put into it to clean it up was a substantial amount. And if he hadn't purchased it, it would still be accruing more penalties and it would not be cleaned up. So they feel that they did the city a service by cleaning it up. And what are you looking at me like
Just give
that
me the
for?
mic. I don't agree with that
Just,
assessment.
all right, let me finish.
Oh, go ahead.
So there, and I talked to Jay about this today too, but they feel that they've put a lot of money into cleaning it up. If it was still sitting there vacant, it would, it would look the way it did before. So they were asking for a reduction in the lien.
And what you recommend?
For the first 6,000 only.
6,000? Yeah.
So that would be my motion.
Okay.
Now can I talk?
Any other comments?
So they're asking for 6,000?
I do. First of all, we are bringing to you a negotiated settlement. You don't sit there and negotiate with a client a settlement that they agree to, and I take exception to what he told you. I don't think that's correct, and I think they had a great deal of responsibility on that land for what was going on. But as we've done with some of these you've seen, we've gone to them, we've negotiated this settlement. You don't negotiate a settlement, come to you, and all of a sudden, well, we negotiated this, but cut it in half. He's lucky we're going for that because I'd probably want more than this for the extent of it. We wanted close to the price the property was worth because this was an eyesore at the end of Lincoln. And 12,000 is we got to start holding these people accountable. And again, this is not a case where we're doing a thing. We've already negotiated this and negotiated a $12,000 price. Now, I just don't understand the fact we negotiate this with an attorney and a client, and then somebody comes back door and tries to reduce what you did a settlement on. So I would say you either vote for this or we'll go back. And if you want us to bring a case of why this is good, it did. But we've got a negotiated price here.
I understand what you're saying.
I don't know how somebody comes in back door and wants to drop it. And believe me, he's getting a bargain for what happened on that property for that $12,000. And I think we had code enforcement, everybody else here, they would confirm that.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
First, we need to link this on the website. It's not linked to the back. FYI, just an oversight.
Right.
What's the what was your motion again, Commissioner Sieber?
Half of that, 6,000, and I understand we can't excuse all liens, but Mr. Howard felt slighted that he was not allowed to speak at the code enforcement meeting. He felt like he didn't have much say in this whole negotiation, and by the time Mr. Sirukis spends the $12,000 plus the $20,000 to clean it up, it's very close to the property value. So it's like paying twice for it. So that's why I agreed to bring it up today.
So I guess to our city attorney, did he agree to pay the 12? Was that you negotiated the 12,000 with him?
Yes, sir. Tom negotiates our
Yes, and he agreed to pay it, which is an agreement that we bring to you.
Okay.
That's why the back door is not appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? No? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Who motioned it? Was that?
A motion for the 6,000.
Okay.
I tried.
Lack of second, that motion dies. I need another motion.
Motion to accept the settlement of $12,000.
Okay.
Second.
And roll call, please.
That is with the terms that are listed.
Yeah.
Half is paid immediately.
Right.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 22, the ordinance 2018-16, the water, sewer, and reclaimed water rates. This is a second reading. The city attorney will read the ordinance.
Ordinance 2018-16, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending portions of Chapter 20 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs, removing references to past impact fees, increasing the tap-in fees for new reclaimed water service, eliminating the readiness to serve and backflow assembly charges for specific residential irrigation meters, decreasing the rate of increase for water rates for fiscal year 2019, October 1, 2018 through September 30, 2019, increasing water rates each year beginning on October 1, 2019 through September 30, 2028, establishing a flat monthly sewer rate, decreasing the rate of increase for sewer rates for fiscal year 2019, October 1, 2018 through September 30, 2019, increasing sewer and reclaimed water rates each year beginning on October 1, 2019 through September 30, 2028, and providing for an effective date. Second reading of ordinance 2018-16 by title only was published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only on July 13, 2018.
Thank you. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Paul Smith, Public Services Director. This has been a long process, but we've appreciated the input we received from you all and the public. This is the same presentation that we presented in the first hearing, so for the sake of brevity, I will read to you the revised recommendations only, that slide, and prepared to answer any other questions you might have. So with that, Ordinance 2018-16 before you tonight for second reading recommends decreasing those previously approved rates for fiscal year 19 to 4% in that year, increasing the future years at 2.75% for fiscal year 2020 through 2028. We're eliminating the irrigation meter readiness to serve charge. It's currently $17.42, and that is specifically for a residential irrigation meter size 5/8 inch by 3/4 inch. For that same size meter, we're also eliminating the backflow prevention charge of $245. And by the way, neither 3 nor 4 are recommended to be retroactive. This is from the point of adoption forward. We're applying increases to reclaimed water rates for the same period, currently 95 cents per 1,000 gallons. We're increasing the meter tap-in fee for reclaimed water service from $300 to $350, establishing a flat monthly rate for those without water service. Miscellaneous administrative revisions, taking out the outdated references, general document maintenance, etc., and then providing for an effective date immediately upon adoption.
Thank you. Any commission comments?
Public seems to be happy.
I think we've had extensive comments on
we've
these
had
already,
plenty of
right?
conversation.
It's actually, are there any public comments on this item? No? I need a motion
Second.
and roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther? Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Great job, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
We are now going to the item number 23, is the resolution 2018-13, the application 18-53, conditional use, Spruce Street, lot number 8 for Master Vasilis. This is quasi-judicial.
Can I ask a quick question? That applicant is not here. Is it possible for us to take the next application? Because the applicant's been sitting here for that application on 24 all this time. So if we could take that application first, I'm sure they'd like to get out of here.
Sure. This is the Marconi, right?
24, yes.
Huh? Okay. That's item number 24, the resolution 2018-14, the application 1857, conditional use, the Orange Street Marconi. This is quasi-judicial. City Attorney will read the title and it will explain the quasi-judicial process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 quasi-judicial items on tonight's agenda, items 23, 24, and 25. So if you're here for any of those items, I would ask that at the appropriate time you please stand and to be sworn. These are all quasi-judicial hearings. At such a hearing, it is not the Commission's functions to make law, but rather to apply law that has previously been established. The Commission may only consider evidence that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant. If that evidence demonstrates that the applicant has met the established criteria, then the Commission is required by law to find in favor of the applicant, subject to any conditions of approval. Conversely, if that evidence demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria, then the Commission is required by law to find against the applicant. All witnesses must give their testimony under oath and give their name and address for the record. All testimony and questioning must address matters that are relevant and material to the issues. There is an established procedure which will be followed. First, presentation by city staff, presentation by applicant, cross-examination of witnesses by staff and then by the applicant, comments by the public, closing remarks by city staff, and finally by the applicant, followed by discussion and vote by the Commission. At this time, as to items 22, 23, and 23, 24, 25, I'd ask any members of the board to disclose any ex parte communications on these applications. And seeing none, I'd ask for those who intend to testify this evening on those applications to please stand and be sworn. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, our first item is Resolution 2018-14, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application number 1857, requesting a conditional use permit to allow construction of 2 single-family residences, one on each of 2 lots described as follows. Easterly portion of Lot 4, Block 63 of Tarpon Springs official map, and westerly portion of Lot 4, Block 63 of Tarpon Springs official map, located on the north side of East Orange Street between Hibiscus Street and North Safford Avenue in the T4A district of the Special Area Plan, providing for findings, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date. Heather.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, Heather Erler, and staff to this application. This application has actually come before you once before, about a year ago. The conditional use came before you. It's not substantially changed since then. The new information that has been added is they have actually gone through the historic preservation process at this point, and they have approval from the Historic Preservation Board. At that time, we recognized when they got through the process that their conditional use was ready to expire, so they've come back through the process. And so basically, it remains consistent with the Land Development Code and the provisions of the previously established conditional use, and staff is recommending approval of essentially a new conditional use for another year's time frame with two conditions, and those two conditions are the conditional use will expire within 1 year of the approval if a building permit is not issued for the property, and the site plan submitted with the building permit application shall include a landscaping plan that demonstrates compliance with the T4A district requirements, and that's essentially the requirements of your special area plan for landscaping. With that, I can answer any questions that you have on this application. Planning and Zoning Board heard this application on July 16th and unanimously approved it.
Any questions? Questions for staff? Does the applicant wish to present to the board this evening? We know you've waited patiently. Are there any, do you wish to speak? You don't have to. You have the option to speak to the board and present your application that's been presented by Heather, but it's your option. Are there any questions for the applicant on behalf of the board? Seeing none, does anyone wish to cross-examine anybody at time of night? Anybody wish to make a closing statement?
Not at this time.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any commission comments, questions? The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. We are now going back to 23, item number 23, which is the resolution 2018-13. The application 1853, conditional use, Spruce Street, lot number 8, for Mr. Vasilis. That's also quasi-judicial.
Resolution number 2018-13, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application number 1853, requesting a conditional use permit to allow construction of one single-family residence on Lot 8, Riverview subdivision, located on the south side of East Spruce Street, between North Pinellas Avenue and North Safford Avenue in the T4C district of the Special Area Plan, providing for findings, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date.
Again, Mayor and Commissioners, this application is very similar to an application that you approved some months ago on the other portion of the street closer to, of East Spruce Street, closer to North Pinellas Avenue. What's essentially happening here is this particular neighborhood is really developing out on an infill basis. So what we're seeing is a demand for residential, single-family residential uses on this property, on these properties. So as a result, while your special area plan really looks at intensification for this area, that's not being borne out by the market at this time. That doesn't mean that won't change over time, but at this particular time, this particular area seems to be, the interest has been to develop either single-family residential for long-term lease or to use them for short-term rentals, which is also allowed in this particular portion of the special area plan. This is one of the few places that you can do that use without coming through the process. They just have to get site plan approval. So they would come through the site plan approval process rather than coming through a conditional use. In this particular case, because it's a long-term rental and they want to do they want to have that single family use, the ability to rent that long term, they need to come in and ask for this conditional use. It's consistent with all of the other conditional uses. It's met all of the criteria in the special area plan. And with that, staff is recommending approval. Again, with one condition, and that condition is essentially that the conditional use will expire within 1 year of the approval if a building permit is not issued for the property. Again, the Planning and Zoning Board heard this application on July 16th, 2018, and there was no public participation on the project, and they unanimously voted to approve it. So with that, I can answer any questions that you might have. The applicant is not here, so.
Are there any questions for Ms. Erwiller?
Nope.
Seeing none, and you mentioned the record will show the applicant is not here. Anything else to add, Heather, in closing?
Nope, that's it.
Sure.
Any commission comment? The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. Item number 25 is the ordinance 2018-17, the application 1868, rezoning LUA Slater. This is the first reading. That's also quasi-judicial.
Ordinance 2018-17, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, for approximately 0.52 acres of property located at 1253 North Pinellas Avenue, App 18-68, including lots 6, 7, 16, and 17, Block 11, Fairview Subdivision, from Pinellas County zoning designation P1, General Professional Office District, to Tarpon Springs zoning designation RO, Residential Office District, providing for findings and providing an effective date. First reading of ordinance 2018-17, second reading to be held on August 7, 2018. It's published in the Tampa Bay Times by title with a map on June 29, 2018.
This is a companion ordinance, just changing the zoning with the annexation that's currently slated to come for second reading before you for this particular property, bringing this property into the city. The current owner actually owns a property just adjacent to this that was annexed some time ago. And in doing our research, we recognized that this particular zoning ordinance was going to be required to bring it in. So this is just the companion to go with the annexation that's currently waiting. And this is that first reading. The rezoning is consistent with our land development code. It's consistent with your comprehensive plan. It meets the criteria, as does the annexation. And staff is recommending approval of the application. Again, it's been reviewed by both your technical review team and found to be compliant with all of the regulations and your zoning board. And there's been no comment or opposition to the application, either this application or the annexation. And with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for staff? No. Seeing none, applicant is not present. Anything else to
I have
add?
no
Heather?
rebuttal.
All right.
Commission comments? Need a motion?
Motion. Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther? Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Item number 27 already has been discussed, so we go to item number 28.
You missed 26.
26? Did I miss one? I did.
Don't skip 26. It's the most important one on this
Don't skip
agenda.
26. Boys are waiting 7, 8, I don't know how many years.
Okay, this is the resolution 2018-15, the application 1682, Mearstown Center plat.
Resolution 2018-15, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving the final subdivision plat, application number 16-82, Mears Crossing Phase 3, a replat, accepting all offers of dedication as described in said plat, authorizing the appropriate city official to certify approval thereon, and providing for an effective date. Resolution 2018-15 by title only.
Thank you. This is the culmination in a very long-awaited project. This is the last step in the process to separate out the parcel where the apartment complex will actually go. We're getting very close in the building division to issuing their site permit for them to start the construction, and this has to happen in order for the lender to essentially fund the project. So essentially what was being requested here is to just authorize both the mayor and the city manager to sign the plat so that it can move forward, so that the lender can then go ahead and fund the project. Essentially what we've accepted in for the subdivision plat is before you, and with that we actually received a security, performance security of over $300,000, almost $400,000 to secure those improvements. That meets the criteria and the test of your land development code, and for that fact, this is a consistent application. So staff is recommending approval of the application moving forward and for the signatures tonight, so I can move it along.
Well, I don't have any questions. I just want to say that I've been waiting for this for many, many years. So, any commission comments, questions? Are there any public comments on this item? Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
And roll call.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther? Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Okay. We are now going to item number 28 is the ordinance 2018-20. It's a meeting referenda for exclusive easement at 1025 Gulf Road. This is the first reading. City Attorney, if you please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2018-20, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, submitting to the electors of the City of Tarpon Springs the sale of a perpetual exclusive easement over a portion of city-owned property located at 1025 Gulf Road and providing for an effective date hereof. First reading of ordinance 2018-20 by title only. Second reading to be held on August 7, 2018. Published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only on July 27, 2018.
Thank you. Any commission comments, questions?
We have a couple. Sure. I just want to make sure that there's a few things that we look at overall with the agreement. I do think it makes sense overall to move forward with this and put it on the referendum. A couple questions I have, just so we could put it or talk about it, getting into the agreement, is one of the comments that I received, I think when I talked with Chief Young, was that the individual that he reached out to about putting a flag back on the flagpole, that's the cell tower, was that it's not in the agreement that she believed. So I would like to make sure that that is firm in the agreement when it's sold, if we can, or to have some type of discussion that that's included. Another discussion would be is what happens if they want to reconstruct the cell phone tower. What limitations are we putting on this from a city's perspective to have maybe something that's less attractive to the eye in that area of town and for the neighborhoods in the surrounding areas? There's just a couple of things that I would like to ask that we look at when we go to an agreement with if it passes and what we're looking at for some of the verbiage.
I think if the city attorney will explain the process of this portion, which the electorate's allowing us to purchase it, then to purchase it, we would bring back to you if you'd explain that two-pronged process where all those questions or any other things you wanted to add, the electorate's just going to approve us buying and stuff. We can still write the terms and stuff with them, which you'll see before we execute it. If they and I disagree with them. They say the flag, to me, the flag is clear in there and stuff. So don't worry, they'll put it up. They want us to go forward with this thing, so that won't be a problem. But that any other concern, you'll have another shot at this. First of all, we got to petition voters to enter an agreement to buy it, but then we do the contract.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager. What Mark said is correct. You have the first question to determine whether the electors, the voters in Tarpon Springs wish to make this transaction to begin with. I've been provided kind of a stock agreement that they use. This company operates nationwide. It's a stock agreement that they are expecting local customization and negotiation. That agreement, once that purchase price is set and approved, and this is by their company's protocols, it'll come back to you for approval as to the specific terms of the agreement. We can certainly negotiate. My sense is, as to the flag, that would be a sort of I'm sure they'd be fine with it based on my conversations with them. As to the construction or reconstruction of the tower, there are other bodies of law at play there other than the city's codes and that contract, to include federal law governing towers of that nature that we would need to observe. But I believe that we could certainly negotiate with American Tower within the confines of that law.
Okay. Thank you. And then, City Manager, if you could just clarify also about the impact of a potential new fire station that we're looking at some point off Gulf Road. Would this have an impact on the design, the footprint, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, no, when we looked at Bob Robertson, of course, when we were looking at the other piece of land that we talked about that unfortunately, we're not going to pursue because of some issues with it. But he had looked at two areas, the scenario of rebuilding at the present site where the station was, and of course the prospect of building at the new site if we were going to buy it. In the rebuild at the site, if you know the land behind there, and that land's right on the wetland, it's on an edge, it was not anticipated that if we had to reconstruct the fire station at site, that portion of land where the tower would be used would have any use in the building or ability to do it. We wouldn't build back that far, so it'll have no effect. That tower being there will have no effect if if, again, we don't find another piece of land and we have to rebuild that station on site, that tower will not obstruct that building or that building. And Bob Robertson did that analysis ahead of time to look at the two scenarios of, and the conceptual of if we had to build at the site or on the new site. Both of those have been examined and looked at. And again, we do not need, or we probably would not go to where that tower site is just because of the land and where it's located.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Finished?
Yes.
Okay. I support the sale of this property since the city has no use for it. Right now, currently we get $41,000 rent a year. The offering to us the lump sum of $720,000. So actually, they want to pay us rent for 17 and a half years. We can actually put that on a special account and get $41,000 every year, or use it for a new fire station. Use the money for a new fire station. My preference is to use it for a new fire station for the future. So that will be my recommendation.
And again, the budget advisory today at me looked at this and they have a recommendation on this issue also.
Okay.
That's why Roger's here so late.
Any other commission comments?
You're a busy man tonight.
Okay.
Oh, this is not, hope they're not watching.
Raj Salu, 967 Bayshore. This also came up today as well in the special Budget Advisory Committee meeting. I agree with the mayor, as did the committee. The recommendation was to accept the straight purchase. We couldn't financially find out why this was a better deal than just going off and put your own tower up, which would be a lot cheaper, it would seem, the land, et cetera. And it turns out, so we concluded that there is a timeliness to it for them to be able to claim ownership so they can tie up a whole series of clients and customers to provide cell phone service. If they were out trying to do a whole series of individual ones, they couldn't, and that's not really their business. They'd rather just lock it up and own it. I think it's an ideal opportunity for the city just to convert something that doesn't have a great deal of value to us into some short-term cash, and as the mayor said, turn it into the beginnings of a new fire station. So the Budget Advisory Committee had recommended that we go forward with it.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on this item? Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes, thank you. Kind of late, didn't I? Well, that concludes the regular session agenda, and then we go to staff comments. Police chief,
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
city attorney,
No comments.
city manager.
No, again, I'll see y'all tomorrow night at our budget meeting. Roger, you'll be back, huh? Again, I know the mayor got a call. Unfortunately, there's been a death in Tom Function's family. He's leaving. He will have somebody there, but there may be some of the budget questions if you have for him. We may need to wait and get the answer to you at another time, but he'll have somebody there, representative. He's on his way up north now to attend to that. So he'll be the only department head not there tomorrow night. Again, I think between myself, Ron, and then we can answer most of them, but we still got plenty of time before this budget's go into effect. If there's any in-depth ones, we'll deal with those at a later time.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk? No? Commissioner Kick?
No, thank you.
Vice Mayor Penn?
I have PSTA in under 11 hours, so hopefully that'll be a good meeting. I'll be back here tomorrow night for hopefully our concise budget meeting. And no further comment. Thank you.
Sieber?
I just wanted to offer my condolences to the family of Steve Christopoulos. He was an amazing man and built the Plato Academy to what it is today. And I think it's the 11th school that's being built right now. Is that right?
9, and we're going to open 3 more.
Okay, all right. So he was a great guy, and my condolences to his family.
Thank you, Commissioner Sieber. He was a very good friend of mine. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know we're all happy with the great news we received just recently that $3.5 million are now being confirmed for the Ankle River dredging. So I would like to thank First, I want to thank my fellow commissioners for being great ambassadors to the city. I'd like to thank the Congressman Gus Bilirakis, Representative Chris Sproles, the county commissioners for being good advocates for the city manager, Mr. Licouris, all the staff. And above all, I'd like to thank the citizens of Tarpon Springs for being so involved and helping us out for this project. That was an outstanding work for all of us. It was a team effort, so I want to thank everyone for working on this project. That concludes the regular session meeting, and it's adjourned at 9:20 p.m.